Hey, greetings everyone, Marquee TV. We've got a special video, special tasting today. To my right is Beth Novak from Spottswoode Winery. Beth is the owner, not winemaker, but the owner. And Spottswood's been making great wines since
1982 vintage.
1982 vintage, which is
Yep.
a pretty good year in Napa. So there's going to be a little bit of a longer video. Beth, welcome to Vancouver. It's good seeing you. I haven't seen
Thanks.
you for years.
It has been too long.
Yeah, it has.
Glad to be
Wait,
here.
next time's at Mustard's in
Exactly.
in Napa.
Exactly.
Just a brief, for those of you who don't know, Spottswoode is probably one of the most, for me anyway, one of the more iconic wineries in Napa Valley. And Beth will just give you a brief history and what we're tasting here, and we'll go from there.
Okay, I will be happy, and I will keep it quick, and I do speak a little bit quickly, so forgive me. My family moved to Napa Valley in 1972 and was lucky enough to buy a beautiful old property that was named Spottswoode. My parents knew zero about grape growing or winemaking, but this was a lifestyle change at a time when Napa Valley was undiscovered and land prices reflected that, so we were lucky enough to purchase right on the west side of the town of St. Helena a beautiful old estate that was called Spottswoode, 45 acres, of which roughly 40 is planted vineyard. When we got there, they were post-Prohibition vines, so we replanted starting in the early 70s in 73 and 75 and planted primarily Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Sauvignon. Then my dad had been a doctor and had quit being a doctor. He had to go back to work in Napa Valley because he needed to earn some money, because the wine industry is a place where you can spend an awful lot of money very quickly. And so he returned to medicine and was an emergency room doctor for a handful of years. And then when he was just 44 years old, 5 years after we moved there, he died unexpectedly of a heart attack. My mother thankfully kept the property, decided to stay, felt like we had something special. And when the Duckhorns and the Schaefers started to buy fruit from us, in particular Cabernet Sauvignon, after my dad's death, they had known my dad and had known their shared dream had been to make wine, and they encouraged my mom. So in 1982, we made our first vintage of Cabernet Sauvignon.
And many of the top Napa wines in those early 80s, late 70s bought fruit from you.
Yes, they did.
So
Yes.
you're drinking.
We sold to various people. I mean, Spring Mountain bought wine from us for a while, St. Clement, Frog's Leap, and then ultimately even Robert Mondavi had bought some of the Napa Gamay. So we had sold to various people. So my mom knew she had a livelihood.
And then I think Rosemary Cakebread was the first winemaker.
Tony Soder was our founding winemaker from 1982 through 91. He made the wines, and then we had Pam Starr for a 5-year stint from 92 to 96, and then Rosemary Cakebread came on board with us starting in the 97 vintage.
That's right.
So we've had some really great winemakers along the way. Aaron Weinkoff is our current winemaker and vineyard manager. I say current; he's been with us since 2006. So he's wonderful, and came on as assistant winemaker in 06. Started managing the vineyard in 08, and then took over winemaking in its entirety in 2011.
Perfect. What do we take now? I don't have my glasses on.
I think it's our 2020
So let's talk about the 2020 vintage.
Sure. So 2020 vintage was a really unique one. It was a hot vintage, smaller tonnage, lower tonnage, I should say, lower yield. But also what happened, of course, in 2020 that people might remember were some massive fires. The glass fire that started on September 25th. For us, thankfully, based upon the style of wine we make, which is always about freshness, always about showing the beauty that we get in California in sort of that fresh, wonderful style, all of our fruit was off the vine by the time the glass fire started. So we are one of the relatively few in Napa Valley who are lucky enough to have a 2020 Cabernet Sauvignon to share and to release. We tested every single lot of wine, because even though the grapes were off the vine before the fires, this is all new for us. We're all learning as we go along. We tested every wine down in Australia, where they have really good labs that test for smoke, because they've had this experience as well. And so with all that testing and with our tasting, we were able to bottle a 2020 Cabernet Sauvignon that we are extremely proud of, that has no smoke taint. The production is off about 25% from normal vintages, so our production is down quite a bit, just because it was a smaller harvest year. It was a drought year. It was a hotter year. So the amount of tons that we were able to bring in was lower, but the wine that we've been able to make is compelling and absolutely of its vintage.
One of the things that the hallmarks of Spottswoode, and I've had the privilege to taste every single vintage multiple times over the decades I've been working with you guys.
Yes.
Is the consistency.
Yeah.
You don't compromise. These are the wines that put Napa Valley on the map in the 70s and the early 80s, and you still make them. They're very hard to find,
Right.
because people are making these, still making these hugely extracted alcoholic wines, or they're planted with young vines, or they have the wrong rootstock. And Spottswoode is, again, one of these classic California Cabernets that you can purchase, put in your cellar, and in 2, 5, 10, or 15 years feel very comfortable pulling it out, and it's going to be even better than when you first bought it or first tasted it.
Yeah, I think that's true. And John, you were one of the first to discover our wines out of country back in. I mean, I started working at Spottswoode in '87. We probably met the year later.
A year later,
And you were
yep.
bringing our wines in, one of the first to bring them in. So, yeah, you introduced Spottswoode to the British Columbia and Vancouver market, for which I'm forever grateful. And we absolutely love being here. But yeah, our wines. Consistency is what we're all about. We want to make wines always that express both time, so their vintage, and place from where they come from, and having that through line and that consistency is important to us. And now that this 2020 vintage is our 39th vintage of Cabernet Sauvignon. The 2021 is our 40th anniversary vintage. So it's pretty remarkable to have that many decades of wines behind us and to be able to talk about them and share them.
Well, here's the thing. One family
Right.
owning one piece of land.
Right.
I'm looking in my mind, and I may be wrong, I can't think of another winery. There's a couple in there, but many wineries that have that lineage.
Yeah, there aren't as many. I mean, because some are being sold. I mean, there is Trefethen.
Yep.
There is, I guess, Cakebread. The Davies are still, Hugh Davies is still there at Schransburg.
Right.
But some of those family wineries that are iconic have sold. Kathy Corson hasn't been doing it on her own as long, but she is very much family owned and does a lovely job. Philip Tonye in the top of Spring Mountain. Randy Dunn. I mean, he's been there for a long time. So what's really fun is that in Napa Valley, even for sort of the corporate ownership and other things that have come in, there are a lot of these family brands that are just doing really great things that we're just happy to be a part of that.
Yeah, and those are the wines I love to bring in. So on that note, thanks for listening. Really appreciate all your support. Thanks for watching Marquee TV. Cheers. I always put a